It's the Security Weekly News. And it's episode 400, which I know people make auspicious numbers out of decimal numbers, but I usually focus on hex and Fibonacci numbers. So it's only episode 190 in hex, which I guess it doesn't sound so great, right? And the next Fibonacci show is 610. So hopefully we'll still be here for that. And the world won't have turned into we'll all be fending off crazy cannibal zombie radioactive chuds. And we're back to the chuds again. But anyway, welcome to the week of 21 July 2024. I've got Elon's killer robots, Crowdstrike and more Crowdstrike, Southwest, Play, FrostyGoop, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Hi, folks. I'm Adrian Sanabria, the host of Enterprise Security Weekly. Every week, we interview the most interesting folks we can find, talking about the most pressing cybersecurity issues and challenges facing the enterprise today. Myself and my co-hosts have each been in the industry for decades, long enough to see the patterns in the industry and explore where trends are going. In addition to enterprise challenges, we also follow the vendor space, the most interesting security startups emerging, technology and product trends, all of the most interesting funding and acquisition announcements. Finally, we love to discuss the latest trends in tech and how they'll impact cybersecurity. If you're wondering how the latest in AI, quantum computing, cloud, and DevOps is going to impact security a few years down the road, you should follow the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News from exile on the island of Elba. I'm Doug White, and welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on your favorite platform, because it's the only thing keeping that giant statue of Paul outside inflated. It just sort of starts to sag down if you don't keep pumping, so you know what to do. All right, well, if you missed a show on Friday, go and watch it. So episode 399 decimal, but go and watch that, because Josh and I spent a whole bunch of time talking about the CrowdStrike outage. In fact, it was a whole show. It was fun. And, anytime we get to talk to Josh for more than like 3 minutes at a time, it's pretty fun anyway, but because usually I just get to talk to him like indirectly, or, he's on a monitor somewhere, but it was really fun. And as you might guess, where disasters occur, scams are soon to follow, right? If there's a flood, there's always somebody coming around selling fake flood insurance. And in this case, everybody's frantically searching for a way to fix their Windows servers. And, well, guess what? Phishing scams are rapidly arising to take advantage of that. Just when you think all is lost, someone calls you on the phone and says, "Hi, my name's Bill. I'm here to help. I'm from CrowdStrike. Let me just take over your whole system." Yeah, exactly. But CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz said, quote, "I encourage everyone to remain vigilant and ensure that you're engaging with official CrowdStrike representatives. Our blog and tech support will continue to be the official channels for the latest updates." So take note of that. So when a guy in a trench coat says, "Hey, buddy, you need some help? It's in this alley back here. Come on back." You might want to think twice about that. The UK National Cybersecurity Center warned that they had observed an increase in phishing messages trying to exploit this. I have no idea how to say this person's name. Gonjxa, Gonsha or something, reported that a malware campaign that was targeting BBVA bank customers that offered fake CrowdStrike hotfix updates, and it was installing Remco's RAT. So basically, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of fake fixes for this problem. And, if you get desperate, right? But basically, you probably, amongst all the other things that you are doing, need to warn all your people that they really do need to be vigilant, particularly now, and that your organization needs to be careful. And this includes, not just your, that end user, stand down in marketing who's going to fall for that stupid thing every single time you send it out, but your IT people and even your security people, because, when you've been up for 30 straight hours trying to get the mainframe back online, and you can no longer really think straight. And, you're starting to hear Hal's voice in your head, and you're just typing random things and hitting enter, like that. And this sort of shining grail appears off in the distance. It says, click me. You really just might do it. We've all been there, right? We've all been there sitting there and they're going, wow. So verify those solutions and advise all your people that they really should try to not diffuse the bomb themselves. Okay. So just say it. Well, Crowdstrike did say on Saturday that a bad sensor configuration update in its Falcon cybersecurity platform was responsible for everything crapping out last week. And now this patch that they pushed out apparently took something like 8.5 million Windows devices offline. And I don't mean took them offline. I mean, like, blue screen of death them. And, can't reboot remotely kind of stuff. And that basically shut just about everything down from the DMV to all the major airlines, except Southwest, who apparently were running RT11 or something like that. But wait for the next story, and I'll explain that part. But anyway, the update caused everything to crash, and many of you are still likely dealing with at least some aspect of it. And nobody ever likes to see the blue screen of death anywhere. I don't like to see it on my desktop. I don't like to see it on my laptop. I definitely don't want to see it in my car when I'm driving down the freeway. I don't want to see it on, in the airplane I'm flying or anything else like that. But when you see them in a dark server room via a remote camera, and you realize you may need to fly to Vietnam tomorrow and all the airlines are down except Southwest, and they don't fly any closer than Hawaii. The Southwest fly to Hawaii? I don't know. If they do, they were still doing it on Friday. I don't know. But regardless, it seems that CrowdStrike has a pretty good market penetration at this time based on the amount of outages that we saw. CrowdStrike did issue a fix on Friday, but look, if it's BSOD, BSOD, blue screen of death, you may literally have to go physically push the start button. You might even have to unplug the damn thing. I mean, we've all done that too, right? But to fix it, you have to reboot it in safe mode, then let the patch download and then restart it again. And you can't necessarily do that remotely. I know there's ways around that, but unless you have those in place, you're going to have to go to the dark server room in, Buenos Aires or wherever it is. So it's certainly an argument to avoid automatic updates, but here you really can't. Because the whole point of this CrowdStrike sensor is that these patches occur several times a day to reflect CrowdStrike's updated intelligence about shifting attack patterns and such. So I don't really know what the answer here is. I think CrowdStrike's going to take a lot of heat for this in the coming weeks, because people are going to be going, wow, we just lost $10 million or we lost $100 million or whatever, and somebody's going to pay for that. So think about your automatic updates, though. What's the next one going to happen, and what's it going to do to you? So according to this story, the European Union may have forced Microsoft to allow third parties like CrowdStrike access to Windows kernel. And I think they actually did. Like every kind of security situation that you deal with, security convenience is always sacrificed in the name of safety, right? When we put a fire code in, it takes away some of our rights. It takes away some of our safety for the sake of us not burning to death in, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory building. If I lock you in a box and I bury that box and say 20 centimeters of good concrete, you will be safe-ish, but it's not really very convenient, right? You know who you are. Yeah, keep screaming. But there was also a lot of focus on antitrust with Microsoft controlling a lot of the market, because Microsoft controls the kernel, right? It's their kernel. They own it. But when Microsoft started expanding what they did from just we build the operating system to we build the operating system and the apps and the security and everything else, all of a sudden people started looking at that and going, well, you're not letting anybody else play, because I want to build a security suite and I can't even access the kernel, but your security suite can. That doesn't seem very fair. So back in 2009, Microsoft was basically ordered in the European Union to allow third parties into their low levels, their ring zeros and ring -1 kind of stuff, in order to increase competition. So basically what that court ruling said was that third-party security vendors should get the same access as Microsoft, since they're selling competing products. But Microsoft has an unfair advantage since they control the kernel. Sounds about right. That sounds fair, right? So as Josh and I were talking about on Friday, as all these products become all pervasive and intermingled, it's going to get a lot more complicated to manage that connection map, right? Because you don't even know who's accessing what, when, where, and why. And, if crowdsource, I'm just making up a company, if crowdsource outsources part of their setup that accesses their product, which accesses the kernel, and the patch from crowdsources beta, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we talked about that on Friday, so you can go watch this show. But, you don't even know who's running what and who might be running Windows 3.1. And speaking of, I honestly thought this story was a joke. I saw these memes start up and I was laughing about it going, yeah, right. Now, the one I did see about Southwest Airlines running all their operations with two flip phones duct taped together, talking to each other. I did enjoy that meme a great deal. I was like, wow, yeah, okay. I mean, and that's like, they've got the earpiece on one to the microphone of the other. I was like, there's connectivity for you. But I literally thought this was a joke. So I actually went out and verified it. Apparently it is true and terrifying. Southwest Airlines, the fourth largest airline in the United States, where you may get stuck on a plane for 4 hours with a flight attendant who believes it's really awesome to sing everything. And when there aren't any instructions to be handed out, to just sing anyway, until you're sitting there in your tiny seat with a kid kicking the back of it. And you're basically starting to ask yourself, what is the maximum federal sentence for murder? I mean, like, really, if I have a tape of this going on. I mean, you think a crying baby's bad? Try a singing flight attendant for 3 hours. Like, hey, does everybody love Dolly Parton as much as I do? Well, let me tell you, honey, I love Dolly Parton. So here we go. And some people seem to enjoy it. I personally was considering poking needles in my eyes, and my eardrums. But anyway, apparently Southwest was not affected by the whole CrowdStrike thing, not because they were running RT11, as I said earlier, but guess what they were actually running? And I did double check it because I honestly could not believe this. They were running Windows 3.1. No kidding. That's what it said. I mean, Windows 3.1 is not even an actual operating system. It's a stacked GUI that sits on top of DOS. Literally. I mean, I was like, are they running DOS too? Nobody mentioned that, but apparently they would have to be running some version of DOS. I mean, Southwest uses Windows 3.1, and apparently they also use Windows 95 for all their staff scheduling system. Now, Windows 95 was released 3 years after DOS 3.1 and was an actual GUI, but I couldn't believe they were still running it. But then I remembered all those problems they were having with their staff scheduling like last year. I was like, okay, yeah. So I guess if it works for you, I mean, it wasn't, I don't know. Probably there's not a lot of malware targeting Windows 3.1. Wait till the phishing scammer guy calls you at Southwest and is going, I would like to install Log Me In on your system to help you. And then it's like, yeah, it's Windows 3. I'm going to set up a system just for that. I think I still have one of Lou's old machines that was running DOS 5.0 with Windows on top of it somewhere. I don't know. But anyway, I do know how to set up Windows 3.1 if you need to hire me to convert your entire operation to Windows 3.1 or OS 2, or, I know what, we can convert your whole operation to like Gen 2 Linux from 1998. Like, you might as well go all the way if you're going. I mean, because then it'll be a challenge. Speaking of ransomware, Play Ransomware is a new group that's deploying a dedicated Linux locker, which targets VMware ESXi virtual machines. Like, oh no. Trend Micro spotted this new variant and said the locker first checks to see if it's running an ESXi before it executes, and also reported that it can evade detection on Linux systems. So not that that's that surprising. ESXi, if you're not familiar with what that means, it's VMware's Type 1 bare metal hypervisor, which is redundant, I guess. That's an oxymoron. I mean, a Type 1 is a bare metal hypervisor, so saying all that is probably pointless. But I said it anyway. I don't care. And I mean, an ESXi is what a lot of people are using in their organizations that supports all their desktops, their servers, all their virtual machines. So as you might guess, if your bare metal hypervisor gets encrypted and all the virtual machines get encrypted, that would be, as we say in the industry, bad. So once Play actually runs, it scans the system, it powers off all the VMs in the environment, and it starts encrypting all the files. And in virtual machines, the files are the hard drives. So there's just a file laying there that's the virtual hard drive or hard drives of that device. And so it encrypts all those and encrypts all the metadata files. And then it changes their extensions to .play. Now, since the ESXi environment, if you've ever worked in it, it's basically Linux. It's kind of a special Linux version underneath, but you can run shell scripts in it, at the command line, just like you would do in like a bash shell. It's not exactly the same, but you get the idea. And then that shell script could be used to shut down virtual machines. It can be used to activate virtual machines. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. So this thing uses a script to shut all the virtual machines down, drop a ransom note in their root directory of the VM, and then I think it turns them back on at the end of all that. And then, of course, when you pull them up, there's basically a ransom note on the screen. Play was first found in June of 2022, and it has successfully attacked Rackspace, the city of Oakland, California, Arnold Clark, which I think is a car dealership, the Belgian city of Antwerp. This sounds like a weird list of like the strangest party ever. The Belgian city of Antwerp and Dallas County. The FBI, CISA, and the Australian Cybersecurity Center said Play had breached more than 300 organizations worldwide. So look, even your ESXi server is not safe. You need to ensure you have a plan. You need to have multi-factor. You need to have offline backups. You need to prevent people from clicking the link or downloading stuff and installing it in the ESXi environment. Nothing is safe. But, you just have to, I don't know. Just because you have Linux servers doesn't mean you can get all smug. I'm telling you. Now, in that light, a study called the 2024 MIM Psycho Digital Impersonation Fraud Resilience Report, which they must have gotten from the big book of crazy government names, like or stuff that can't be an acronym, MDIFRR. It was found that 72, and I didn't know what this report was. I saw the headline, I read it, but I found 72% of the companies they polled were using a website impersonation protection solution. And I thought this was something other than what it actually is. But only 6% of those people said that it actually solved the problem. They also found that 40% of the customers who became victims of a fake site scam ceased to interact with the business whose website was being impersonated, and that 2/3 of businesses only learned about their website impersonation attack from customer reports after scams had already occurred. Now, I thought this was talking about deep fakes of the CEO telling you to download a fix or something from the site scammy McScam phase, but it really wasn't. It was really just talking about people that are impersonating your business for, I guess, phishing attacks, which was sort of the theme of the day. But anyway, I mean, this is how Play ransomware operates. They have URL shortening tools and that make all that stuff work. But basically, they're trying to get you to think you're booking replacement tickets for your flight to Buenos Aires on Southwest Airlines when the airline abruptly canceled your already booked flight. It was kind of a weird study that I was reading, and their stats were all kind of like, I don't know how much of this was based on like a broad spectrum, or it was just people that subscribe to some specific solution or what. But the study says that you need swift detection and recommended Google alerts be set up. And I'm not endorsing these or criticizing. I'm just telling you what they said. So swift detection, that makes sense. That rapid response needs to be in place because it takes time to get fake sites taken down. And that you need customer protection by warning customers as soon as you detect fake sites, which is something I think a lot of people would not be willing to do. But this prevents your customers from getting scammed and never coming back to your site. So the study basically says if they get scammed, they don't come back to you. So you might want to let them know as soon as you know something. And, it's getting a lot easier to script in the creation of thousands of domains. I mean, you can do this in a second now. There was a story last week about that. And URL shorteners make Play ransomware, easy to download. And it basically complicated at that point so that you can't tell apple.com from apple.com and things like that. I mean, I own Hot Horse and I own Hoot Horse with the slashes in the O's, just for demonstration purposes, of course. But, if you ever happen to need a Hot Horse, you'll know what you're looking at. A previously unseen malware named FrostyGoop was able to target ICS infrastructure in the Ukraine last winter. And I have been in Eastern Europe in the winter, and you really don't want your building heat to stop working. The malware was able to shut down a district energy company in the Ukraine last winter for 2 whole days, and the temperatures were, Eastern European. The attacks occurred in January of this year and targeted the temperature controllers of an energy company in Lvov, which provided heat to about 600 apartment buildings, not people, apartment buildings. And the malware altered values on the controllers. So this is thermostat controllers, I guess, that made them think it was a lot hotter than it actually was outside. Or maybe it was the temperature of the water. I'm not sure. But it wasn't heating the water. And instead of heated water running through the pipes to the radiators in the building, it was cold water. So that's got to be fun. And of course, then the residents didn't have any heat or hot water. And in January in the Ukraine, yeah. But Frosty Group was written in Golang for Windows, and it communicates directly with the ICS that controls all this using Modbus. This is why I got interested in this, because if you don't know Modbus, wow, Modbus is so old you may not remember it, but it runs on TCP port 502. And when I immediately thought of that, because I had a guy call me one time and said, do you have any idea what TCP 502 is? Because I keep seeing packets and there's whole bunches of them in my network. And I was like, what the hell? I do remember that from somewhere. And then I thought about it for a little while and I went, it's Modbus. And, literally the person asked me this because they didn't know what they were seeing. They said, is this an attack? I don't know what it is. It's Modbus. Modbus is really old, and it's used all over the place for thermostats, valve controllers, all kinds of things. And guess what? It's got about nothing in the way of security. The packets aren't encrypted. The protocol is well known. You can roll your own Modbus packets. You can intercept Modbus packets en route and change them. It's old school hacking. It's so old, most modern people have forgotten this kind of stuff. And they spent 2 days trying to break the crazy encryption before realizing, oh, is that plain text? I thought LOGIN might be like a secret code or something, but it's literally like that. And I've seen people doing that going, what do you think LOGIN? Is that like a kind of encryption string? And you're like, I think it means log in. It's in plain text. And then they're like, oh, modern people don't think about stuff like that. Like, could you just open the door latch with a coat hanger kind of, stuff, because they don't think that way. They're like busy trying to hack the system on your 1968 Chevrolet Biscayne convertible. And it's like, maybe you can just open the door with a coat hanger or just reach through the, yeah, exactly. But listen, don't ever expose Modbus to the internet, ever, for any reason. If you do and you open port 502, even if you say our operators have to get to it, you need VPN, you need multi-factor, you got to have all this stuff, because this allowed them to read and write to the ICS. Don't open ICS to the internet. We've said that 1,000 times and you're still doing it. Look at the Purdue model if you don't understand this. Don't do this ever. It drives me crazy, and you're going to get targeted and somebody's going to abuse you and you'll be freezing in the winter. Really. And to quote Isaac Asimov, you just can't differentiate between a robot and the very best of humans. And the very best human I know is Josh Marpet. Hi, Josh.
Hey, hey, how you doing? Winter time. Turn off the hot water in Ukraine by exposing Modbus, and oh my god.
Yeah.
And then when you try to hack your Chevy Biscayne, all I can think of was, remember the triangle windows, the vent windows at the front?
Yeah, no, the vent window, yeah, of course.
Tap them and
yeah, you just
them open
push it, and it usually popped right open, yeah, because it just had a little it had a friction lock on it. It didn't even have a lock; it just had a friction thing, and you could literally jiggle them. I've gotten the keys out of my dad's car, when we lock the keys in the car, you just sit there and you just slowly pound on it a little bit, and it eventually just pops loose. And then there was the cigarette window is what that's for.
Yeah, was that the cigarette window?
Well, that's what the purpose of it is. You pop it open so that the smoke from your cigarette gets sucked right out. It's just a little tiny window. You can open it, but I mean, it could be used to vent too. But if you reversed it, it was for cigarettes, and then the ashes go out there, smoke goes out there.
Crazy.
Of course, all those cars had ashtrays in them, cigarette lighters, the whole works.
Yeah, that thing. Actually, they repurpose that. Those cigarette lighters, they repurpose those for now fingerprint identification. What you do is you push the thing in until it turns red. When it pops out, it's ready to read your fingerprint. Just go ahead and stick your finger on that.
Wow, is that? Yeah. Okay, I'll try that next time I'm in one of those cars. I don't have a car. I don't have a car that old anymore, but I used to. And Lou had one. Lou had an ancient Chevy Blazer that had a pop out lighter. Yeah, exactly.
My first car was a 1979 Oldsmobile custom cruiser station wagon. That thing had ashtrays, cigarette lighters, the backwards third seat in the way back.
Ooh, yeah.
The
pit.
Great car. It also had a smoke screen. If you push the gas pedal far enough, the rust from the muffler created an effective smoke screen.
Oh yeah, my girlfriend's dad had a diesel Chevrolet that when you hit the gas, we were following him, like driving to this beach house, and I got there and I was just like, my whole face was gray from the diesel smoke, because I was following him in a 1977 MGB with the top down, and I was just literally like this bizarre. I looked like I'd been spray painted gray. It was. My girlfriend was laughing at me. No, she was like, ah, and I was like, really? Look at you.
Wrong thing to say. Wrong thing to say.
Yeah, looks like makeup effects from Doctor Who in the 60s. But
oh, God. Anyway, so
all right.
First off, 400th show. That's amazing. Awesome. Congrats. I'm so happy that I'm able to be here for this. So congratulations, Doug.
Yeah, well, that is a lot of shows. I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, wow,
just think of all the time in your life you've missed. It's amazing.
I know. Man. Think of all the cool things I could have been doing that would have paid me money, and I could be living in a mansion and criticizing Elon Musk on a national television or something. But yeah, exactly.
I have this funny feeling you wouldn't be in a man. Never mind. Anyway, so I put in a story about Wiz. If you've been around the last few weeks, you know that Wiz was talking to Google, or Alphabet, actually, Google's parent company, to be acquired. And it was going to be a $23 billion deal from what I heard. And that $23 billion deal was going to be for a company that I think Wiz has only been around for about 4 or 5 years. So to go from 0 to 23 billion in 4 or 5 years is pretty much everybody's dream in terms of the high tech and infosec world. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Google and Wiz have dropped the talks. They're not going to be doing that at all. And Wiz has stated that they're actually planning on going public. So it's going to be interesting. So this is an Israeli firm now headquartered in New York City that does cloud security. So maybe they would have seen port 502 in the in our Ukrainian Modbus story. But it's absolutely interesting to me how the infosec market has changed over the last, 15, 20 years or so in terms of companies succeeding. You don't even hear about a company succeeding anymore unless they're $1 billion company. It's a whole different version of success than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if you had a consulting company, you had 3 people working for you, you're like, yeah, I am successful. Now if you don't have 50 people growing at 10 million% a year, becoming $1 billion company projected in 14 days, whatever it is, like it's you're not successful. You're just a loser with a job who's created a job for himself or herself. And I guess I put this story in because I really wanted to talk about that for just a minute. I know people in InfoSec that are making $100,000 a year, or $70,000 a year, $250,000 a year. They've bought $1 billion company, sold $1 billion company, whatever. And everybody has their own definition of success. Wiz, in this case, has decided that their version of success is to go public. Now, I'm really looking forward to that. And the reason I'm looking forward to that is I expect a PE firm to pick them up from that and totally ruin everything. Okay? Because as we all know, when a PE firm buys an InfoSec firm, normally there's a pretty good chance they're going to turn it into crap. All right? If they don't, it's the exception to the rule. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's the honest truth. And while earlier in the last couple of years, I was talking, Thoma Bravo has definitely done some things that make me suspicious. Looks like they're actually taking good care of SailPoint. So I don't know. But anyway, my point is that if Wiz missed the yellow brick road, and I had to do the pun because it was just sitting there waiting to be done, right? But they're definitely looking to find the man behind the curtain because they're looking for that their IPO, their initial public offering. They're really looking forward to getting a couple of $1 billion out of that at least. Are you going to buy in? And the answer is, I don't know. Honestly, it's going to be fascinating. I think that IPO will also signal a very big change in how the InfoSec world measures success. Let me explain what I mean. I'm sorry. I'm going to say 18 months ago, a lot of firms laid off their entire sales and marketing team, laid off a hell of a lot of developers, laid off a hell of a lot of InfoSec people. The reason they did that was they were moving from hyper growth to sustainability. They were changing because they saw that the economy was changing. They saw that the political climate was changing. They weren't sure which way to jump. And they said, look, let's be sustainable. Let's see, can we survive on the revenue we're getting instead of pouring every dollar of revenue into sales and marketing and using venture capital money to survive. And that was a very smart move because the economy has not done great things. But on the other hand, them laying off hundreds of thousands of people, I think it's 140,000 people so far in 2024, certainly didn't do much for the economy. These are also the people that buy your stuff and work on your InfoSec programs. So maybe the people that would have bought your stuff, would have bought your product, would have bought your services, well, you laid them off 6 months ago. So sorry, you reap what you sow. On the other hand, it's and at this point I think I'm up to 6 or 7 hands. I can't tell anymore. It is very difficult. I'm working with a startup right now, and it's fantastic and wonderful, but it's also difficult. Day by day, we run into the problems of growth. You know, I joked as I joined the startup that I'm taking the foosball table out, and it's been a really interesting and wild ride to take that foosball, metaphorical speaking, foosball table out of the office. But they're great people, and I love working with Cyturus. Anyway, I think one of my maxims here is that we have to be very careful what we deem as success, and we have to have clear plans for the road ahead. Wiz may have missed the yellow brick road. If you're working at a company or you own a company, don't miss your yellow brick road. Make sure you know what your exit plan is. Doug.
Thanks, Josh. Took the foosball table out? Oh, my God.
It's a good joke, isn't it?
No, I mean, I recommended that once too. I was actually consulting for a startup that was basically burning, you know, they were like, we want to know how to succeed. And they were burning through money so fast, and they had no customers and no products. And I went down, I said, well, I'll come down there. I'll bring some people. We'll take a look and see what we think. And, you know, I went in there, and it was like they were just spending money on, I mean, they had like a chef coming in on Thursdays to cook these like, you know, very elaborate meals. They had foosball tables and ping pong tables and pinball machines. And you know, and I'm not, you know, Joe Stolid of like, let's coat and tie and all this. And I mean, I don't think there's a problem with it, but when, you know, your programmers are spending all day in a foosball tournament instead of writing any code, that, you know, it's kind of a problem. I was like, maybe you should play less foosball and write more code. Like, I'm not saying get rid of the foosball table, but maybe make the foosball table like a break thing rather than a whole day thing. And they were like, oh man, you're no fun. They went bankrupt a year later, but that's okay. They IPO'd and made a whole bunch of money in their IPO, and then they went bankrupt. But I've never seen a PE firm do anybody any good. And I've worked at several places that got bought by PE firms, and it was just like the beginning of the end. Thanks, Josh. And finally, in the what could go wrong category, and a lot of these what could go wrong start with Elon Musk. You know, I said it, you know, but I mean, Elon said Tesla will start producing and using humanoid robots next year and start selling them to the public in 2026. Now, nothing was mentioned of the 3 laws of robotics, a la Isaac Asimov. The 3 laws of robotics, if you don't know what they are pretty simple, and they're actually really, really smart. 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or the second law. Remember when human beings were kind of smart? Yeah, I do, but not anymore. But anyway, Elon says these robots are called Optimus. Yeah, could go wrong with that. But and they would be used in Tesla factories by the end of the year. You know how he says stuff. You know, he's like, we will have robots by the end of the year. Do it. You know, so of course Honda and Boston Dynamics are also developing their own humanoid robots to turn loose on us. But Elon has previously said the robots will be mass produced and will be available for around $20,000 US by 2026. I mean, what could go wrong ever? I mean, read iRobot. I mean, they had 3 laws and they still had problems, right? Elon is kind of Wild West libertarian, and wait till you bolt some half-assed AI onto a robot that they built and turn it loose, and you end up with rabid robots running around saying Elon is a god walking the earth, bow down before him, look upon my works, ye mighty, in despair. That kind of thing. Not that I'm a Luddite, and I expect Elon will send me a free Optimus pretty soon, but it'll probably arrive carrying like a spear gun. Right? Yeah. Like, hi, Doug. Elon says, hi. Pop. Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be more like Joe Pesci. It'll be like, Elon's finally going to give you that Tesla X that he promised you in that bathroom in New Orleans that night. And they'll say, it's just over here in this shed. And I'll be like, oh, cool. And then you walk in and go, oh, man, because there's nothing in the shed. And yeah, that whole thing. Anyway, that's the news. Thank you, Josh. And I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.